Good evening.
We are live. We are here with Daniel Jacob Horine, artist and CEO owner of PopFlyPopShot.com.
Hey, folks, how's it going?
And I'm not sure how to introduce this guy. Do I introduce you as Joe or as Sidd Finch? What do I say?
I answer to both. So.
Say that again?
I answer to both. So
answers to both. This is Joe, the legend of Sidd Finch. Tomorrow is April Fool's Day. So completely new to PopFly. Let me reset what that is. Every week, Daniel does a baseball print. It looks like a comic book style cover, but it is just the cover. And these are available for 1 week only, and then they are retired forever. And now, Joe, you with the names like Babe Ruth, Hank Aaron, Fernando, and Dale Murphy. You're right in there with them. How does that feel?
Mighty legends, all of them. So.
I dropped the Murphy Fernando for us. But let's go ahead and show the print, Daniel.
You got it.
So in the spirit of April Fool's Day, which is tomorrow, PopFly has... Can you reset this story real quick for maybe a listener who has no idea what we're talking about?
Sure. The April 1st cover date of Sports Illustrated, that magazine.
Nice.
The story came about because George Plimpton of New York author fame wanted to do a story on April Fools. And Mark Mulvoy, the managing editor, thought that would be a great idea. And they fleshed it out a little bit. And Plimpton came up with his character, Sidd Finch. I got involved in it knowing nothing about that end through a photographer friend of mine, Lane Stewart, who was a staff photographer, one of them at Sports Illustrated. And Lane knew my interest in baseball. I've loved baseball. I've grown up loving baseball. And he and I share a hobby of toy soldiers. So we got to know each other pretty well through that. And when he needed an assistant, when he was able to hire one to just basically carry bags and load film and such, he'd give me a call and we'd do some work, but then also talk toy soldiers. So with baseball coming up, he knew my love of the Cubs, but he called me up for a spring training story dealing with the Mets. On the call, he said, I've got this story on this Mets pitcher. He's a phenomenal athlete. He plays the French horn. He's got a Tibet background. He's got a 168-mile-an-hour fastball. He's just got a little rug and a food bowl. What do you think? The Mets and Cubs are in the same division. I'm thinking that sounds like a good story, but no one can throw that fast. But yeah, it sounds great, Lane. And he said, well, get yourself a French horn and a food bowl and come down to St. Petersburg. You've got to be the guy. So I met Lane down in St. Petersburg. We had a printout from Plimpton, a general idea what the story was about, and a couple of days to shoot it. So we talked ourselves into different scenarios. Lane had some ideas. I had some ideas. Plimpton had ideas. And between our being forward and good humor and all around good guys, we talked ourselves into different scenarios and came back with a lot of shots to possibly use.
And I'm sure thank you for resetting it yet again. Daniel, when did this become on your radar for the possibility of a PopFly cover?
Oh my gosh, April 1st of last year when I realized, why didn't I do this last year? and it was the first April Fool's Day for PopFly. And I thought, oh my gosh, I let this one slip. I can't let it slip next year. So gosh, probably months ago, almost a year ago, I started working on this piece. I had done a 3D model of the pose and just sitting here waiting for April Fools to roll around. But it was sitting on the shelf for quite a while.
I should have mentioned fans. Go ahead and throw some questions in if you want to get your question. So Daniel, are you saying this is the longest efforted PopFly in the history of PopFly?
Oh, for sure. It's been marinating for quite a while.
Can we show that cover again? And Joe, I'd love to get you to what brings up of what you see on this cover. What stands out at you?
Well, there are a couple of things that people loved about the story. the photos, Plimpton, when Lane showed the carousel of slides with the varieties of different scenarios we set ourselves up into, he loved it. He thought we really ran with the character. We were with the Mel Stoudemire. We were with the real Mets guys. The Mets that year had just signed Gary Carter, and the Cubs and the Mets were in the same division. So I had been following the Mets pretty good. They had Dwight Gooden, Ray Knight, Darryl Strawberry, George Foster. Just truly loaded. Ron Darling, Jesse Orozco. And we were able to get shots with many of those guys, but we stayed with the younger players. Lenny Dykstra and Kevin Mitchell were rookies at that time. Gooden, some of the other pitchers were really young. We didn't want to hang out with the guys that had already made their major league careers. We didn't want to be noticed. We wanted to be under the radar. So Plimpton called for my character to have one work boot on, the other barefoot. So at the time I was teaching art in a school in Oak Park, a suburb of Chicago. So I had to borrow a French horn from the music teacher. I went to Pier 1 and bought a rug and a food bowl. And one of my teacher friends, his brother worked construction, wore size 14 boots like I did. So that's what we did. One of the shots Lane wanted to do that we talked about was pitching on the beach. He said, "What would you do?" Well, with a fastball like that, I thought back of setting cans on a fence, like with BB guns and just dinging them away. I go, let's try and do that with pop cans. So here was 6 o'clock in the morning in St. Pete. 7-Elevens were only open then from 7 until 11 at night. No store was open for us to find Coke cans. So Lane and I, high-priced Sports Illustrated story, we're going through garbage cans looking for. So we found 3. So we went down to the beach and set them up like that. And Lane just took many different photos of that scenario. And that's the classic picture there with the double spread that you can see. And it became widely reproduced, but that barefoot high up like that, when Daniel stuck the foot up like that, it reminded me of that. We revisited the story then in the year 2000, a Where Are They Now issue. And that led to cow chip throwing contests and javelin in England. So more feet up in the air, kind of like that. So the barefoot, I think Daniel really captured.
For like pitch as a kid, where did you get that windup from? Did Mel help you with it?
Well, Plimpton described it as a windup looking like Goofy gone crazy. So I had some leeway on how exaggerated I wanted to do it. So with the joy of Lane's encouragement, I could exaggerate as much as I wanted and keep my balance and pretty much throw the ball as I'd like.
Nice. Well, these are only available until this Sunday, and they are retired forever. Just go to popshop.com. Daniel, if you could show the print again. I loved hearing Joe talk about that barefoot stuck up way in the air. I love your background. That is the tarp kind of idea at the spring training field.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love what Daniel did with that. You know, we part of the story was when Sidd was in spring training, I'd be behind a tarp. Everything would be kind of secret, I guess. But in the story, Sidd learns how to throw with a Buddhist meditation by spending some time in Tibet with monks and throwing rocks at snow leopards to keep them away. So there's the Himalaya Kathmandu mountain range. And I complimented Daniel incorporating those mountains in that background that turns into that tarp with the players peeking through and looking at me.
So Daniel, in your world, is Sidd Finch like an actual person then, or is this still a ruse? Like, what's going on in the story that you're telling?
I think originally it was just going to be a very like pure Sidd Finch comic. I think the original sketch I had sent to Joe when I did this was just the mountain range and Sidd up there. So it was very Sidd Finch focused. But then I thought about it more, and I thought I'd like to do some more storytelling. So I still kept the same idea of Sidd Finch in front of the mountain range, but I brought in some of the story, the whole overall legend of it. The real life part of it, where there's the tarp that's hiding their actions, and there's some rivals, and they're peeking over there. They've got a staff against the obviously a facade there. So it truly is a piece kind of about the moment, about the real life moment of Sidd Finch, and sort of kind of blending what was imagined and what really was.
And Daniel, I loved how you incorporated that silhouette of the figure there too, based on that opening spread that we used.
It's iconic. Thank you.
There's a couple of other things. You've got the French horn down there. The French horn was great. That played a real big part in the story. I get the pronouns mixed up between I and Sid, but Sid was possibly taking up music, and he mastered the French horn as well. So, and in many of these shots that we did, I'm walking around with the French horn, and on one of the sideline stories, I was sitting with Kevin Mitchell and Gooden and Orozco, Ron Darling, and Kevin grabs my horn. The game's going on. There's a spring training game going on, and Kevin starts playing the horn. He's getting weird, obnoxious notes out of the French horn. Davy Johnson's looking down the first base side. What the hell's going on down there? I'm trying to get my horn back from him, saying, "Look, you guys can't get kicked out, but Sid might. I've got to behave myself." But we calmed it down for a little bit.
So what were you doing all that time, Joe, inside the tarp? Were you just sitting in there, or?
Well, inside the tarp, we would just shoot our pictures. The backup pitcher with the 85 Mets was Ron Reynolds. So we didn't do any story work with Gary Carter. He was too big of a name, and everybody was tracking Carter around. But Ron Reynolds was fantastic. And Mel Stoudemire as well. He was the pitching coach of the Mets at the time. And Lane got photographs of me standing with Mel, and Mel's actually showing me how to throw a real fastball. So young Sid and Mel are sitting there going over the fine art of the pitch.
What a blast.
We got some pictures of Ron looking into his hand, blowing on it. Like the fastball was just so fast. And Plimpton made quotes up for him too in the article. So
Evan and I were wondering ahead of time, could anyone actually catch a 168 mile an hour fastball without breaking their hand? I have no idea. I'm curious. Could they actually catch a Sidd Finch fastball?
That gets into that. We were talking about that. And when Plimpton incorporated this into a full-length novel after the story came out, and one of the things to try and get that speed is to drop a ball from a balloon or an airplane of some sort. But even that maxes out, I think, at about you'd have to talk to a physics guy. That dropped object only maxes out at a certain speed. But Plimpton, in his research, I think the fastest recorded ball would be some tennis players have a serve that's about 120 miles an hour. But you're not trying to catch that either.
Yeah. Well, I think the realism is just you guys did this literally in the perfect moment of time. We had the innocence of the 80s. We didn't have the internet. And specifically for the Mets, Doc Gooden just had maybe the greatest rookie season of any pitcher. And so this idea, the Mets having another one, it made sense, I think, to culture. I'm curious though, Joe, did you ever get any backlash from Met fans of feeling like their hopes got dashed a little bit? I know they won this next year, but did you ever experience any backlash?
I think it's interesting when the story came out, the magazine closed on a Sunday. Monday morning, Sports Illustrated, the hard copies would be distributed to the media. And Lane Stewart's wife, Anna, worked with People magazine at the time. And the sports editor of Life magazine had come into Anna and said, how come Lane didn't tip us off on Sidd? We should have known about Sidd. And it dawned on Anna telling that story to Lane that people were actually going to believe it. That we thought, I mean, 168 miles an hour, who's going to fall? And that's what we found out. There were people believing the story. And some sports writers tracked Mel Stottlemyre down that Monday morning at St. Pete looking for Sidd. And Mel just completely with a straight face said, you know, it's 8 o'clock. He's probably back in bed. I had him out here on the beach at six in the morning. If you want to catch Sidd, you got to get up earlier. So there's a lot of that. Senator Daniel Moynihan, one of the New York senators at the time, called the Sports Illustrated office. And he had gotten word of the story and wanted to know, is it all true? And the secretary said, we stand by everything we print. Word hadn't gotten down to the secretaries that we were in the middle of a big April Fool's joke. So,
yeah.
But then once kind of Monday, Tuesday was New York. I'm in Chicago. I get the magazine either on Wednesday, Thursday. So it becomes a big story in Chicago, Wednesday, Thursday. The West Coast hits it Thursday, Friday. So you had almost, unlike now with the internet,
right.
You really had a delay time effect reaction going across the country. And the media would respond like that too. They'd be tracking us down or tracking Plimpton down, give us the update. So finally, of course, by the end of the week, the story was the hoax and not anything keeping it real. And then the story truly became the hoax. How did you guys pull this off? Mets fans loved it too, even when they knew it was a hoax. You know, they were disappointed. But I talked to a number of Cubs fans that were thinking, "Oh man, they've got Gooden and now they've got Finch." I think they were relieved when they found out it was a hoax.
Now, if you just walked around New York for a while, what's the likelihood? Like, how long would it take before somebody recognized you?
Well, I go to a number of the ball games, and I try to catch the Mets games when they're in town. So the Mets were playing the White Sox 2 years ago, so we did that game. The local media, that I call it the summer of Sidd. It was so crazy. Our Chicago stations all played it up. The local papers played it up. So it became a big deal. When the Mets would come to town, they'd leave tickets for me at the box office. So I'd get my tickets as Sidd Finch, and then I'd always meet Mel Stottlemyre and talk to some of the guys I had gotten to know better from the story. There was a game when the Mets were playing like the Saturday afternoon game with Tim McCarver was the announcer, and Sid Fernandez was pitching for the Mets that day. So I showed up, and the WGN guys got a great kick of me being there for the Mets games. And I walked past McCarver's booth, and the Mets, and he goes, "Hey, Sid, what are you doing here?" He said, "Well, I read in the box score Sid was pitching. I didn't realize it was Sid Fernandez." So I showed up. They told me, "Not yet, Sid. So you can stay home."
Daniel, I'm sorry, go ahead.
The Mets were really just great about it. And then, of course, that led to meeting many more additional players over the years that I've had great fun with.
So fun. Daniel, can you show the print again? And again, available until Sunday. Go to popflypopshot.com. Daniel, what's your memories of this as like a kid? And did it always stick with you? Even come back like as a popfly thing?
I think I was too young to in real time, be acquainted with this. But this was, I think I was 6 years old, 6 years old when this came out. But it was certainly, even way back then when I was first starting to fall in love with baseball as a young kid, this is what we would see on This Week in Baseball and any compilation clips or any kind of thing, any kind of anything that would go over the history of baseball. Sidd Finch was a part of it, so I was absolutely aware of Sidd Finch from a young age, pre-internet. It's funny that I was aware of it because it was pre-internet and it was several years past the actual moment, but the moment still had momentum that kind of carried in year to year without the power of the internet behind it. So that just goes to like to just goes to say that this moment was big and important and has legs. That it would just sort of last so long. Now with the internet behind it, this will never die.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the internet, it's interesting. The first couple of years afterwards, I'd go back teaching school, and I'd get some kids that would come in and, oh, my dad says to ask you about the Sidd Finch story. So I'd get up and show them that. They think that was so cool. And then with the internet, I remember telling some young people the story, and sure enough, they start looking at their phone, and then they're sharing the pictures with each other. So the internet, like Daniel said, I think in a sense, it's kind of revived it, because it's at your fingertips now. If you Google Sidd Finch, you'll see a lot of the photos that we've talked about, and it has kept it the legs. It keeps going, and the fact that it's an April 1st story.
Yeah.
I mean,
True.
If it was just because it's April 1st, there's always somebody visiting April Fool's stories for the April 1st newspaper edition of some sort. So there's always somebody new coming in wanting to get Sidd's opinion on. Tell us about that story.
Well, there is an option. How do you sign? Do you sign this as Joe, or do you sign this as Sidd Finch?
Well, I'll tell you, the first autograph I signed, the Mets wanted this. The magazine came out maybe it's always issued before the cover date. So the magazine hit maybe 5 or 6 days before the actual April 1st. And it was a big deal. Then the Mets called me up and said, we want you down here for April 1st. It's going to be their last spring training game. They're going to have a Sidd Finch Day, give out T-shirts for you to read. We've got bands. It's going to be a crazy day. Can you make it, Sidd? So I'm on the phone with them. I said, only on one catch. I get to keep the uniform this time. Oh, okay, Sidd. Okay, Sidd. Yeah, you have the uniform. So we go down there, and I read this statement, and they fly Lane down, my friend, the original photographer. Now he's covering the story, not just the story we're making up, but he's assigned to cover Sidd Finch Day. So Lane's there, and it's great to catch up with him and his reaction of it all. And I'm reading a story, a couple of sentences that Plimpton wrote up about me retiring from baseball because of the deception, and it's just not it's not as free and honest as it should be. Instead, I'm going to take up the singular game of golf, and if the Mets need me, I can come back later. So I'm walking off the away from all these mics like Lou Gehrig Day or something.
today.
ABC News, and I've got ESPN, all these camera guys there. I'm walking off, and some of the Mets guys are signing autographs, and then kids are coming down, and a kid hands me the ball that he just got from Gary Carter.
Wow.
And I'm looking at the ball, and I can't sign this ball. You've got Gary Carter on this ball. Carter turns around and says, Sidd, sign the ball.
I love it.
So I signed it Sidd Finch. But
and what about these pop flies? How are you going to sign these pop flies?
Well, typically what I've been doing is signing Sidd Finch, a.k.a. Joe Berton.
Okay.
Happy April Fools, Sidd Finch, a.k.a. Joe Berton. So that's
nice.
That was the first autograph I signed to Sidd Finch. It was on a Gary Carter ball. So there's somebody I hope is still happy to have those two signatures on a ball.
Yes. That reminds me of Kevin Conroy, who was the voice actor for the cartoon Batman, said his take was Batman was the real person and Bruce Wayne was the costume. That's
there you go.
Daniel, is there a fan question that has sparked your interest?
There's a lot of questions. If you have time for a couple, Joe, I'd love to run a few of these by you. The first one is Eric Magnuson. He says, I read somewhere that Joe chose uniform number 21 because he found it to be a mystical number. And can you explain more about that?
Yeah, I got when it got time to pick a uniform, I think the first uniform they gave me was like 45 or something. And I had a roster sheet, and I looked and there was a 45 there. I didn't want a number that had a printout to it.
Mhm.
And there was no 21. And I mean, you turn 21, and everybody knows something about 21, and
Mhm.
Roberto Clemente as well. But you've got, to me, it just seemed to be an interesting number, 21. And they gave out 21. And that particular year, interestingly, the Mets, they even announced during that press conference that season they would retire the number 21. So as far as I know, that season, until maybe the late fall call-ups, no one was issued 21 on the Mets.
Wow.
There's been 21 since then. So it was just kind of a Sidd thing that year.
I'd still love for them to retire at 21. I think that would be a great move by the Mets to retire 21. There's a couple other questions if you have a few moments. You mentioned George Plimpton's novelization of this, and Jason Anderson asks, is there any progress on ever making a movie out of this character? And thanks for
what Plimpton loved about the story, he gave Lane so much credit and me for being a part of it, but Plimpton really felt it was the photos that sold the story. That you had to hook the reader right away with the photos, and the photos to him got people to slow down and read it. But because it was such a popular story, and an idea, we got, I think it was over 3,000 letters to the editor, and that's writing a letter, not just sending an email. He loved being exposed to a new generation, what he thought, a younger crowd. He was still all involved with the Paris Review, which some of your viewers probably know about, the literary magazine that he had been instrumental in its founding and keeping it going. So whatever he made off of any of this, he just put back into the Paris Review. But the movie thing, interestingly, you sell movie rights for a limited number of time, for a span of maybe 3 or 4 years. So he got a kick out of selling the movie rights. People would have it in kind of a dream production, script rewrites or something. It would get booted down because Bull Durham came out or something. There'd be another baseball movie coming out. And so, but Plimpton loved the fact that he could sell the rights again and again and again.
Trying to keep that going, yeah.
Right. So he no movie was made, but at least George benefited from it.
No movie yet.
No movie yet.
Let's see. Let's ask one more question real quick. And actually, this question, I'll share it in a moment. It touches on something that I was thinking, and Evan and I were talking about it ahead of time. Was like, let me show the question, then I'll share my question as well.
Okay.
What was your expectation as far as how seriously people would take it? And that was Evan's and my take. It feels like there was no element of believability in the story. You know, you're talking about 168 miles an hour, one shoe on. Like, no one's ever going to buy this. It was so flimsily rooted in reality that I'm just shocked that people bought it.
One of the fascinating things I've had over the years happen is when I meet people that meet me for the first time. Quite often they want to recount their own experience with the story. And a number of them will tell me they were in high school, they were in college, and they're showing the magazine around and they're taking a shoe off and they're trying to lean back and exaggerate how to pitch and throw this way. And it's fascinating to get people's different insights on that. I had friends of mine in college after the story came out. I mean, they knew my baseball part was all made up, but they were fascinated. I had 2 separate friends who knew me quite well in college, said, Joe, you know, that's a great story. We really love it. But when did you get so good at playing the French horn? When did I don't know how to play the French horn. I borrowed it from the music teacher. He showed me how to hold it properly, so it looked like I knew how to play it. I could blow some notes out of it. But even some aspects like that, people just took to it well. So at that April 1st game, after the announcement and signing autographs, I wanted to stay and watch the game, and reporters wanted to talk to me. So we went way up into the stands and to do some interviews. And as the game's going on and I'm talking to the reporters, I can see these 4 college kids working their way up the seats towards us. And I said, well, this ought to be interesting. I'll hear what they say. They get there and they said, we're on spring break. We've been in a car coming down here. This has been fantastic. Sid, why are you leaving baseball? They never
Oh.
they've been like in a time warp car travel.
So you had to break the bad news yourself.
They thought it was real. I said, well, it just might be time. I just stayed in character. It just might be temporary. Well, Bob here, he plays on the college team. Give him some tips. I said, well, you take your one shoe off and pitch that way, make sure your coach will let you. But if you take that off, you're going to gain a couple miles an hour right away. It's just the physics of it all. Oh, man, that's great, Sid. That's great.
So somewhere there's a college kid out there on the mound, like, I don't know why this isn't working.
Right. Well, it could be if he leverages himself right. So.
Oh. Well, hey, about let's end, Joe. Let me ask you a modern day baseball question. You said you're a Cubs fan. They got the every Cubs fan is happy, but yet now Bryant's gone, Rizzo's gone. Are you happy with the ring, or did the Cubs miss out on sort of something bigger?
I wish it could have been repeated. I mean, 2016 was great. When they picked up Madden, I loved it. He seemed to be such a people person. He did his first news conference from the bar right across from Wrigley Field. It was fantastic. So, I like the Suzuki pickup. That'd be fun. So look forward to that. I'm going to Cubs opening day with Steve Trout. Steve Trout used to pitch for the Cubs and Sox. So I met him at a George Plimpton book signing gathering of all things. And he was in line to get a book signed. And I was there to wait for Plimpton to finish up and go have dinner. And Steve was all excited about meeting me. And then if you want to hang out, you can meet George. He'd probably enjoy meeting a real athlete instead of drinking with a fake one. So we took Steve with us to dinner as well. So next week anyway, Steve and I will be going to opening day.
Right.
Looking forward to the Cubs.
And we're glad there's
the next week is the Sox opening day too. My 2 sons are big White Sox fans. So I see maybe 6 or 8 of each game during each team during the season.
We're all glad there's a season. And Daniel said it earlier to me. If there's a book on baseball, there's at least a page that has Sidd Finch in it. So that's got to be a joy for you to know that. And Pop Fly has agreed with that. So thank you for the time to do this. Thank you for signing them, Sidd Finch, a.k.a. Joe Berton. We look forward.
I love Daniel's work.
Thank you, Joe. This was a blast. So someone asked on the stream, how much was this the most fun I had on a Pop Fly, and it's absolutely up there. I appreciate, and you're an artist yourself, Joe. Actually, it would be a great segue. Before we joined on the live stream, we were talking about art of all things, and Joe was sharing some of his sculptures and that he has done. Joe, would you mind showing that up real quick? What do you?
For a career, I taught art here in Oak Park, and one of my hobbies is painting and sculpting military miniatures or toy soldiers, and that's how Lane Stewart, the photographer, and I met. We share that same hobby, and I'm president of the Military Miniature Society of Illinois, MMSI, and we have an annual show in October. So I'll get that plug in, but let me show you this so I can come up close. This is a piece I did based on the early championship team of the Chicago Cubs with Tinkers to Evers to Chance. And we were talking earlier, I've always liked that bit of baseball ballet where the second baseman or shortstop has to leap over the sliding incoming runner. And you see that beautifully performed in maybe a couple of games a week, but that catching that frozen in time. So this is before the Cubs got pinstripes. That would have been a real bear to paint. But the Cardinals caps at that time were still the same STL. And the Cubs had that bear logo with the baseball bat. We probably can't get close enough in there to see it, but the logo is there too. So I do not just military figures, but a number of sports ones. And this is one I did recently of Ernest Hemingway and Robert Capa. They knew each other from the Spanish Civil War days and met up again on the March to Paris to liberate it in World War II. So I'll do the research involved in making sure that the uniforms, and like the baseball uniforms too, everything is as precise and perfect as I can get, and sculpt it as realistically as I can do as well. And then finish them with oil paints and with highlights and shadows, and then display the work.
Wow.
That's awesome. Someone's asking here on the stream, have you made a Sidd Finch one yourself yet?
I have not made a Sidd Finch, but a friend of mine did make one, and he displayed it at our show, and the collector was all excited about that, and even had me sign the figure, and I gave him a baseball card to go along with the Sidd Finch sculpture. So
I love it. So here's our connection point. I'm a former art teacher. I'm assuming you had a natural aptitude for the arts yourself. I think one of the biggest things that was difficult for me as an art teacher was I've been lucky enough to be able to just know how to do this stuff. It's just in there. So it was always a challenge to communicate that, something that was instinctual. That how do you then give a sequence to it, or a plan, or a template? Like, did you ever struggle with anything like that as teaching art?
I never struggled so much of that personally with my own work. I mean, my mom and dad were real great about letting me pursue it, and getting me the materials, or letting me buy some of the figures that I started out painting other people's sculptures. So having access to that, and having parents that were just really supportive of my own interests. With teaching it, now I dealt with 7th and 8th grade, you're 12 and 13, and a lot of those kids are finding their own place in the world too. But most of them still haven't really confronted any real serious problem yet. So they still don't mind taking risks. Gotcha. So if they presented something in an art way, oh, this doesn't look right, or it would kind of depend truly on the student. If they were wanting to do something in a more towards perfection, I could help them with that. If it was something that they're just happy with and exploring their own creativity, I could let them have that free reign too. So just by the subject, I had more ways of reaching kids than a math teacher. Everybody's on page 8, and we're doing the odd numbers today. Sure. So my students, if they liked the potter's wheel, they could stay on that more. If they wanted to do more sculpture, I had ways of reaching them too. So if the principal walked in, there might have been 10 different things going on in the room. Once I explained to him, there truly is a method to this madness. It is okay. Look to see what's going on. He understood it too.
I love it. It seems like a very pure way to learn. Everyone not on page 8, everyone at their own pace, their own interest. I love it.
Yeah.
Someone's asking on the stream, are any of your sculptures available for purchase?
Some of the toy soldiers are. Usually the more detailed like this are more one-of-a-kind pieces that I do more for collectors. So I can't say no, but I don't have like a website or anything. But if you can get in touch with me through that MMSI Chicago, our toy soldier group has got a web page, and my email is in there too. So if they want to learn more about miniatures and things, that's the place to go to, and I will help you out. I'll guide you along the way.
There you go.
Well, all right, Joe, we have kept you long past our commitment, and thank you so much for just being accessible and fun and sharing stories. And I'm sure all three of us are super glad at least we have a baseball. Looking forward to getting those autographs from you, and thanks for being a part of the Popfly universe now.
I love it. I love being part of your universe as well. It's great. And Daniel, I particularly love the cover you just did. So that's great.
Thank you, Joe. I really appreciate you partnering with me on this one.
It's been fun working with all of you.
Likewise.
Thank you.
All right, take care.
Thank you, Joe. Man, I didn't know anything about him personally, like he could have been just some dude that was in the weird spot at the right time.
Mhm.
I love that he's a baseball fan. Like that makes
Yeah.
it so much better, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, it made sense. I don't know who it was who made that. Was it Lance? I can't remember who made that call. But he knew the right person to pick for sure.
No, I'm agreeing with you. I don't remember it in real time at all. I think I heard about it either on This Week in Baseball
Mhm.
or on like a Bob Uecker Wacky World of Sports recap.
Yeah.
But I remembered it as soon as you said, "Hey, I'm working on this." So funny
Mhm.
that it has just stuck all this time.
Yeah, it was just a moment, a week, you know, and it's got, gosh, it's almost 40 years now, and it's I, I'm sure there's much more we could have talked about with Joe, but I'm certain every year he must get all these April Fools like requests, like this story just lives on, and it truly is a piece of baseball.
Did as he was talking, did you have any connections with Al Rabowski at all?
Al Rabowski, how so?
Like he almost talks as the character.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, for sure, yeah. Yeah, I think it was a great thing you mentioned. You know that Batman is the person and Bruce Wayne is the character. I think that's a great way to put it. I think it's a lot. It's that's what most of us are familiar with too. Is Sidd Finch. You know, so it's very interesting to kind of go in between both.
Yeah, I think the great line in Seinfeld when they had the lie detector test. He goes, "Remember, it's not a lie if you believe it." Let's show this cover again, though. It is only available until Sunday. Flypopshop.com. And there is an autograph option where he committed to signing this. Sidd Finch. Oh, man, I think is great. Anything else on the cover, Daniel, that you would like to bring to our attention?
Just nothing that you probably can't already glean from here, but just trying to help tell the overall story of Sidd Finch, and the fabricated part mixed with the real part. You know, so you've got some Mets rivals there peeking in. The Nepalese flag there. I know the price tag is obscured by that overlay over there, but it's got the price in, it's 85 cents, and it's also the 85-cent equivalent in the Nepalese rupee there for the price.
Oh.
And he's saying namaste there in the speech bubble. The barcode says 168 miles per hour. It's got Plimpton, it's got Berton there in the barcode. So a couple little fun things sprinkled there throughout.
And I'm going to agree with him. That silhouette, for some reason, really stands out at me as one of the coolest parts of this cover.
Thanks. Yeah, it's a very iconic thing. I feel like there's few pictures that I think that you could tell who it is by the silhouette, and ironically, the pitcher that's never pitched is one of those characters that you would recognize as that very classic Sidd Finch silhouette.
Well, it's been over a year in the making, but shop.com, get it if you want that autograph option. I would assume he's a tough autograph to find because you guy doesn't have an email address. You can track this guy down, so go ahead and get that autograph option. Daniel, you participated in the Pop Fly gigantic 20-team fantasy draft.
Yes.
And you massively spent for a couple of your Braves.
I sure did. For better or for worse, I love that team, and yeah, I spent big and spent early. That's my motto.
There was someone else in the league who was also a Braves fan, and I was just chuckling as you two were just driving up the prices on each other.
Oh gosh, Austin Riley should not have gone for what Austin Riley went for, but he did. So we'll see how that goes.
Now, who did you landed? Freeman?
I can't remember if I got Freeman or not. I think I got Freeman. I know I got Ohtani and Austin Riley, and I can't remember the others.
Well, last time we all talked together, we were just begging for that hope. And look how much has happened since then. More free agents have signed. First day is the day our beloved sport gets going again. Do you have any just random thoughts, either as a baseball fan for the season?
Let's see. Sorry, you cut out at the end of that, but I think general thoughts is I'm kind of surprised that we have a full season ahead of us, given how things were looking towards the end. You know, they've said very clearly, you know, we're missing out on the first series, second series. So okay, so the season's getting shorter and shorter. So it came as honestly a surprise to see that we've got a full season ahead of us. But looking forward to it. Definitely going to go to some games. Looking forward to doing some pop fly, maybe events surrounding some games coming up. So glad there's a season. Yeah, we need baseball, and glad it's here.
Yeah. Is there that you would say keep an eye on them or be weary of them if you're a Braves fan or anyone?
I'm sorry, you could cut out that question. Can you say it one more time?
Oh, is there a team on your radar that you would say that is the team to watch this year, or a team that you're as a Braves fan?
I mean, it's going to be hard not to notice the Dodgers this year, just given this the MVP power they have this season. I mean, they got Freddie Freeman. So yeah, I was super bummed to lose Freddie Freeman, but also he's going to my hometown heroes, so I'm glad to be able to probably have some opportunities to see him. And I've only seen Freddie Freeman play just a handful of times. He's been on the other coast, so it's going to be great to see Freeman play. He's one of my favorite players was one of my favorite players on the Braves, so good to have him with the hometown heroes. My favorite reliever is Kenley Jansen. Looking forward to him going to the Braves. I don't think that he was treated all that superbly here in Los Angeles, so I'm looking forward to what he can accomplish in Atlanta with hopefully a more supportive fan base around him.
I'd say the Mets, DeGrom and Scherzer, that just reeks of fun. I mean, what
absolutely.
Lineup is just fun. They're young. A lot of them are second generational studs, but I think that Blue Jays team, they're going to make some noise big time this year.
Awesome. You heard it here, folks. Load up your fantasy baseball team with some Jays.
I noticed Joe just messaged us. Close with that. He said that was really great fun. I also want to buy some of your Sidd prints, so you please. Oh, you know what? That's a personal message to you. Joe said he had fun.
Gotcha.
He had fun with us. Joe, we had fun with you. Daniel, thanks for always being willing to take a risk. I mean, anyone could have done a second Tony or a King Griffey, and to pull out the Sidd Finch from your back pocket was a really fun experience for us for this week. So thanks for taking us on your journey. Go to popflypopshop.com, get that Sidd Finch, and also get that autograph option. That's right.
All right. Thanks all. Take care, and thanks for joining.
Thanks, Daniel, and thank you, Joe.
Thank you.